The boy who ran away. Leo stared at the red F on his math test, his stomach twisting into knots. Outside his classroom window, a sparrow flew freely in the blue sky. How he wished he could escape like that bird, away from difficult equations, away from his parents' disappointed faces, away from the bully Mark who always stole his lunch money. That afternoon, when Leo's mother picked him up from school, she immediately noticed his gloomy expression. "What's wrong, Leo? Did something happen at school?" "Nothing," Leo mumbled, sliding lower in the car seat. He watched the houses pass by, each one representing a family that probably didn't have problems like his. At dinner, his father asked about the math test. When Leo showed them the grade, his father's forehead wrinkled with concern. "Leo, we've talked about this. You need to try harder. Math is important for your future." "But I don't understand it. No matter how hard I try, the numbers just swim on the page," Leo protested. "Then we'll get you a tutor," his mother said gently. "Starting this weekend." That was the final straw for Leo. A tutor meant even less free time, more pressure, more expectations he couldn't meet. That night, as he lay in bed, an idea began to form in his mind, a dangerous, exciting idea. He would run away. The next morning, Leo packed his backpack carefully. He took some clothes, his favorite book, the $50 he'd saved from birthdays, and a photo of his family. He wrote a short note, "Don't worry about me. I'll be fine." Leo, he left it on his pillow. As he walked to school, his heart pounded with both fear and excitement. Instead of going to school, he turned toward the bus station. He bought a ticket to the next town, feeling very grown-up as he handed the money to the ticket seller. On the bus, Leo sat by the window watching the familiar streets disappear. For the first hour, he felt wonderful, free and independent. But as the bus traveled further from home, the landscape became unfamiliar, and Leo's confidence began to waver. When he arrived in the new town, everything seemed strange and intimidating. The buildings were taller, the streets busier, and everyone moved with purpose, unlike the leisurely pace of his hometown. Hunger soon reminded Leo that freedom came with responsibilities. He found a small park and took out the apple and sandwich he'd packed. As he ate, he noticed an old man feeding pigeons on a nearby bench. The man had kind eyes and smiled at Leo. "Beautiful day, isn't it?" the man said. Leo nodded, mouth full of sandwich. "Not from around here, are you?" the man asked gently. Leo shook his head, suddenly missing the familiar faces of his neighborhood. The man introduced himself as Mr. Miller. He didn't ask probing questions, just talked about the weather and the pigeons. Leo found himself relaxing in the old man's company. As afternoon turned to evening, Leo realized he needed to find a place to sleep. He said goodbye to Mr. Miller and wandered toward what looked like a commercial district. The $50 that had seemed like so much money suddenly felt very insufficient. He found a cheap-looking motel, but the room rate was $80 per night. The clerk looked at him suspiciously. "Where are your parents, kid?" They're coming later," Leo stammered, backing out of the lobby quickly. Darkness began to fall, and the air grew chilly. Leo hadn't brought a jacket. He found an alley behind some restaurants where large dumpsters gave off warmth. The smell of garbage made his stomach turn, but he found a relatively clean corner and sat down, pulling his knees to his chest. For the first time, the full weight of his decision settled on him. He thought about his warm bed at home, his mother's cooking, even his father's lectures about math. Tears welled in his eyes, but he brushed them away angrily. Suddenly, a noise made him jump. A large dog emerged from the shadows, sniffing the air. Leo froze, terrified. The dog approached slowly, then surprisingly wagged its tail and licked Leo's hand. "Hey there, boy," Leo said softly, his fear melting away. The dog sat beside him, providing unexpected warmth and companionship. Leo named him Guardian. The night passed slowly. Every noise made Leo jump, passing cars, people's voices, the wind rustling paper. He couldn't sleep, missing the safety of his home desperately. The next morning, Leo woke stiff and cold. Guardian was still there, waiting patiently. Leo shared his last sandwich with the dog, then realized he needed to find food and figure out what to do next. As he wandered the streets, he saw children his age walking to school, holding their parents' hands or joking with friends. A deep loneliness settled in his chest. He found a supermarket and bought some bread and water with his limited money. As he left, he saw Mr. Miller again, this time walking with a cane. "Hello again, young man," Mr. Miller said. "You look like you've had a rough night." Leo tried to smile, but his eyes betrayed his misery. "Come," Mr. Miller said gently. "Let me buy you a proper breakfast." Over eggs and toast at a small diner, Leo found himself telling Mr. Miller everything: the failed math test, his parents' disappointment, his decision to run away. Mr. Miller listened patiently, then shared his own story. "When I was about your age, I ran away too. I thought my parents didn't understand me. I was gone for 3 days before I realized that running away from problems doesn't solve them." "But what if you can't solve the problem?" Leo asked, his voice small. "Then you ask for help," Mr. Miller said simply. "There's no shame in needing help. I struggled with reading when I was your age. Hated it because the other kids made fun of me. But my teacher worked with me after school, and eventually, I not only learned to read well, I became an English professor." Leo thought about this. "My parents want to get me a math tutor. And that sounds terrible?" Mr. Miller smiled. "Well, no," Leo admitted. "But I thought they were disappointed in me." "Parents worry because they care," Mr. Miller said. "I'm sure your parents are very worried right now." Leo looked down at his plate, guilt washing over him. After breakfast, Mr. Miller offered to call Leo's parents. With trembling hands, Leo dialed the number he knew by heart. His mother answered on the first ring, her voice frantic. "Leo? Leo, is that you? Where are you? Are you okay?" Tears streamed down Leo's face as he heard the relief and worry in her voice. "I'm okay, Mom. I'm sorry." Mr. Miller drove Leo to the bus station and bought his ticket home. As they waited for the bus, he gave Leo a small, worn book. "This is about a boy who discovers his own strengths in unexpected ways. Maybe you'll enjoy it." When Leo arrived home, his parents hugged him so tightly he could barely breathe. They didn't yell or punish him immediately, they just held him, repeating how worried they'd been and how much they loved him. That weekend, the math tutor arrived. Her name was Sarah, and she was a college student who made math seem like puzzles rather than problems. She discovered that Leo learned better through stories and practical examples than through traditional methods. Slowly, math began to make sense. More importantly, Leo learned to ask for help when he didn't understand something in math and in life. Sometimes, on difficult days, Leo would look at the photo he'd taken with him, the one of his family, and remember his short time away. He'd remember the cold alley, the fear, the loneliness, and then he'd remember the kindness of Mr. Miller and the loyalty of Guardian. He started volunteering at the local animal shelter, where he met a dog that looked remarkably like Guardian. He named him Guardian too, and visited him every weekend. Running away hadn't solved Leo's problems, but it had taught him valuable lessons about family, about asking for help, and about the kindness of strangers. And though math would always be challenging, he now knew that some problems aren't meant to be run from, but to be faced, one step at a time, with help from those who care about you.